Most gardeners think spring is the only time to plant fruit trees, but they're missing out on the best planting window of the year. November is actually perfect for getting bare root trees in the ground while they're dormant and affordable. After decades of planting orchards, I've learned which varieties thrive when planted now. Today I'm sharing 15 fruit trees that are ideal for November planting. Stick around because number 8 practically takes care of itself once established. And that bonus tip at the end is a money-saving trick that most nurseries don't want you to know. The first fruit tree on our list is the apple, and there's a good reason it tops the chart. Apples are incredibly reliable across zones 3 through 8, which covers most of the country. When you plant bare root apple trees in November, you're getting them at their lowest price of the year, sometimes half what you'd pay in spring. The trees are dormant, so they experience almost no transplant shock, and their roots have all winter to establish before spring growth begins. Look for varieties like Honeycrisp if you love that crisp, sweet bite, or Liberty if you want something naturally disease-resistant. Fuji and Gala are both excellent choices for fresh eating and storing through winter. One of the smartest things you can do after planting is to prune your apple tree during late winter. This shapes the tree early and encourages strong branch structure, which means better fruiting down the road. Don't be intimidated by pruning. You're simply removing any crossing branches and opening up the center so sunlight and air can reach everywhere. A well-pruned apple tree will reward you with healthier fruit and fewer pest problems for decades to come. The next tree we need to talk about is the pear, and it's one of the most underappreciated fruits for home gardens. Pears grow beautifully in zones 4 through 9, giving them an even wider range than apples. When you plant them in November as bare root stock, you're setting them up for strong root development through the cold months. Pears are actually quite forgiving once established, and they produce heavily when they're happy. Now here's something important about pears. Some varieties, like Bartlett, are self-pollinating, which means you only need one tree to get fruit. But many others need a partner nearby for cross-pollination. If you have the space, planting 2 different varieties like Bosc and Seckel will give you a longer harvest season and better fruit set on both trees. Bartlett is the classic choice for canning and fresh eating. Bosc has that beautiful russet skin and holds up wonderfully when baked. Seckel is a smaller pear, almost bite-sized, with incredible sweetness. Hosu is an Asian pear with a crisp, apple-like texture that stores exceptionally well. The beauty of planting pears now is that they'll be rooted and ready to push out strong growth come spring, giving you fruit years sooner than you'd expect. The third fruit tree that deserves a spot in your November planting plan is the plum. Plums thrive in zones 4 through 8, and they're one of those trees that really shine when planted during dormancy. November gives them time to settle in without the stress of leafing out right away. Plums come in so many wonderful varieties, each with its own personality. Methley is an early ripening plum with deep red flesh that's almost wine sweet. Toka is incredibly hardy and has a unique apricot-like flavor that makes it stand out. Santa Rosa is the classic Japanese plum with that perfect balance of sweet and tart. Stanley is a European type that's fantastic for fresh eating, canning, or even making prunes if you let them dry. One thing that's really important with plums is giving them enough space. These trees need about 15 to 20 feet between them so air can circulate and sunlight can reach all the branches. Good airflow means fewer disease problems down the road. Mulching around your plum trees is another simple step that pays off tremendously. A thick layer of organic mulch keeps the soil moist, suppresses weeds, and protects those developing roots through winter. Plums are generous producers once they hit their stride, and November planting gives them the best possible start. And the fourth tree on our list is the cherry, which is truly a treasure for any home orchard. Cherries grow best in zones 4 through 7, and November is an ideal time to get them established. There's an important distinction to understand with cherries. You have sweet cherries like Bing, which are delicious fresh, but need very specific growing conditions and are less cold hardy. Then you have sour cherries like Montmorency and North Star, which are much tougher and more forgiving for most climates. If you live anywhere that gets harsh winters, sour cherries are your best bet. They handle the cold beautifully and produce reliably year after year. Montmorency is the gold standard for pies, preserves, and juice. North Star is a dwarf variety that stays compact and manageable, perfect if you're working with limited space. Here's where November planting really saves you money. Dormant bare root cherry trees cost significantly less than potted trees in spring, and they actually establish faster because they're not dealing with leaf growth while their roots are trying to settle in. Cherry trees planted now will wake up in spring already anchored and ready to put all their energy into healthy growth. And that head start makes all the difference in how quickly you'll see your first harvest. The fifth fruit tree that's absolutely wonderful for November planting is the fig, and this one might surprise you. Figs are typically associated with warm climates in zones 7 through 10, but there are cold-hardy varieties that expand where you can grow them. Brown Turkey is probably the most popular fig for home gardens because it's reliable and produces 2 crops a year in warmer zones. Celeste has smaller fruit, but it's incredibly sweet and has that classic fig flavor. Chicago Hardy is the variety that changed everything for northern gardeners. It can survive down to Zone 6 and even Zone 5 with protection, dying back to the ground in winter but regrowing from the roots each spring. Here's a smart approach if you're in a cooler area. Grow your fig tree in a large container so you can move it into an unheated garage or basement when hard frost threatens. The tree goes dormant anyway, so it doesn't need light during winter. You're just protecting it from the killing cold. This container method lets gardeners in zones 5 and 6 enjoy fresh figs, which would be impossible otherwise. Plant or pot up your fig this November while it's dormant, and by next summer you could be harvesting your own fruit. Figs are also remarkably low maintenance once established, rarely needing sprays or fussy care. Our sixth fruit tree is the persimmon, and this is one that more gardeners should be growing. Persimmons do well in zones 5 through 9, making them adaptable to a wide range of climates. November planting works beautifully for persimmons because they're fully dormant and their roots can establish slowly through winter. There are 2 main types you need to know about. Fuyu is non-astringent, which means you can eat it while it's still firm, like an apple. It's sweet and has no bitterness at all. Hachia is astringent and needs to be completely soft and jelly-like before eating. But when it's ripe, the flavor is absolutely incredible. For colder zones, look at varieties like Proc or Meter, which are American persimmons bred for hardiness. These can handle Zone 5 winters and still produce abundantly. The key to success with persimmons is watering them deeply during their first year. They need consistent moisture while their root systems are developing. Once established, they're quite drought tolerant and need very little from you. Persimmons are also remarkably pest and disease resistant, so you won't be spraying chemicals or fighting constant problems. Choosing non-astringent types like Fuyu makes harvesting and eating so much easier, especially if you're sharing fruit with neighbors who might not know when a hachia is ready. The 7th fruit tree worth planting this November is the quince, and it's a bit of a hidden gem. Quinces grow well in zones 5 through 9, and they're one of those old-fashioned fruits that deserves a comeback. You can't eat quinces raw because they're hard and quite astringent, but when you cook them, something magical happens. They turn this beautiful rosy color and develop the most incredible fragrance and flavor. Smyrna is a classic variety with large aromatic fruit. Pineapple quince has a tropical note to its flavor that really comes through in jellies and preserves. Aromatnaya is a Russian variety known for its intense perfume and excellent cooking qualities. Quince trees are remarkably easy to grow once you understand what they like. They want full sun, at least 6 to 8 hours a day, and decent drainage. Unlike apples and pears, quinces don't need heavy pruning. You're mostly just removing dead wood and keeping the center open for airflow. These trees are naturally somewhat shrubby in their growth habit, which actually makes them easier to manage. The fruit stores incredibly well, too. You can keep quinces in a cool place for months, and they'll fill your kitchen with the most wonderful aroma. If you love making homemade jellies, jams, or membrillo, quince is absolutely worth planting this November. The 8th tree on our list is the serviceberry, and this is the one I mentioned earlier that practically takes care of itself. Serviceberries grow beautifully in zones 3 through 7, making them perfect for northern gardeners. What makes this tree so special is that it does double duty in your landscape. In spring, it's covered in delicate white flowers that look absolutely stunning. In summer, you get sweet berries that taste like a mild blueberry with a hint of almond. Then in fall, the foliage turns brilliant shades of orange and red. You're getting food and beauty all in one package. Regent is a popular variety known for heavy fruit production. Autumn Brilliance lives up to its name with spectacular fall color. Honeywood produces large, sweet berries that are wonderful fresh or in pies. Here's what makes serviceberries so easy. Once they're established, they need almost no fertilizer. They're not heavy feeders like apples or peaches. They're also resistant to most pests and diseases, so you're not constantly spraying or worrying. The birds do love the berries, so you might need to net your tree if you want to harvest before they do. But honestly, there's usually enough fruit to share. Planting a serviceberry this November means you'll have a low-maintenance tree that gives back year after year with minimal effort from you. The 9th fruit tree that's perfect for November planting is the pawpaw, and this is truly America's forgotten fruit. Pawpaws grow in zones 5 through 9, and they're native to the eastern United States, which means they're naturally adapted to our climate. The fruit tastes like a tropical blend of banana, mango, and custard, which is remarkable, considering these trees handle cold winters just fine. Shenandoah is known for its large fruit and excellent flavor. Sunflower produces consistently and has a wonderful creamy texture. Mango has that tropical flavor profile that really stands out. Here's something important about pawpaws. They need cross-pollination, so you'll want to plant at least 2 different varieties to get fruit. The trees are also particular about their early years. Young pawpaw seedlings naturally grow under the forest canopy in the wild, so they actually prefer some shade when they're getting started. As they mature, they can handle more sun and will fruit better with it. Heavy mulching around pawpaws is essential. They like consistent moisture and rich, organic soil, so a thick layer of wood chips or shredded leaves creates the forest floor conditions they love. November is ideal for planting because these trees establish slowly, and the dormant period gives them time to settle in without stress. Once mature, pawpaws are incredibly low maintenance and produce unique fruit you simply cannot buy in stores. The 10th tree we need to discuss is the mulberry, and this one is a powerhouse producer. Mulberries grow in zones 6 through 9, and they're one of the fastest growing fruit trees you can plant. If you're impatient for fruit, mulberries will reward you quicker than almost anything else. Illinois. Everbearing produces heavily from spring through summer with sweet blackberry-like fruit. Pakistan mulberry has enormous berries and tolerates heat exceptionally well. Black Beauty is known for its intense sweetness and dark, almost black fruit. Here's where you can really save money with mulberries. These trees root incredibly easily from cuttings, which means you can propagate your own trees instead of buying multiple plants. Just take hardwood cuttings in late winter, stick them in moist soil, and most will root and grow into new trees. That's huge savings if you want to hedge or multiple trees. Mulberries are also remarkably unfussy. They tolerate poor soil, drought, and neglect better than most fruit trees. The main thing to know is that the fruit does stain, so don't plant them over patios or driveways. But if you have space in your yard where that's not a concern, Mulberries will give you buckets of fruit with almost no care required. November planting sets them up beautifully for rapid spring growth. The 11th fruit tree that's excellent for November planting is the pomegranate, and it's more cold-hardy than most people realize. Pomegranates are typically grown in zones 7 through 10, but with the right variety and placement, you can push those boundaries. Wonderful is the most common commercial variety with large fruit and deep red arils. Angel Red produces earlier in the season and has softer seeds. Parfianka is a Russian variety with wine-colored juice and incredible sweetness. If you're in Zone 7 or a cold part of Zone 8, there's a smart trick to help your pomegranate survive winter. Plant it near a south-facing wall where it gets reflected heat and protection from harsh north winds. That microclimate can make the difference between thriving and struggling. Another cold weather strategy is to prune your pomegranate into a bush form rather than a single trunk tree. Multiple stems coming from the ground means that if some die back in a hard winter, others will survive and the plant will recover quickly. Pomegranates are also quite drought-tolerant once established, which makes them perfect for water-conscious gardeners. November planting allows the roots to develop during the cool season, and come spring your pomegranate will be ready to put on strong growth and potentially even bloom in its first year. The 12th tree on our list is the peach, and it's a classic that never goes out of style. Peaches grow well in zones 5 through 8, and November is actually the ideal time to plant them as bare root stock. You'll save a considerable amount of money buying bare root peach trees in fall compared to potted ones in spring. Alberta is the old-fashioned favorite that's been grown for generations. It's a freestone peach with yellow flesh and incredible flavor. Contender is one of the most cold-hardy varieties available, perfect if you're pushing the northern limits. Red Haven ripens early in the season and produces reliably year after year. Here's an important tip about peaches. They fruit on last year's wood, so your pruning timing really matters. Prune in late winter or early spring, not fall. Spring pruning helps control the size, opens up the center for sunlight, and actually boosts your yield by directing energy to the best fruiting branches. Peaches do need more care than some other fruit trees, particularly watching for peach leaf curl and other diseases. But the reward of perfectly ripe, homegrown peaches is absolutely worth it. When you plant your bare root peach tree this November, you're getting it at the best possible price and giving it all winter to establish strong roots. The 13th fruit tree that's perfect for November planting is the nectarine, which is essentially a fuzzless peach with its own distinct flavor. Nectarines grow in zones 5 through 8, just like peaches, and they share many of the same care requirements. Hard-ired is an excellent variety for northern growers because it handles cold winters reliably. Red Gold has beautiful yellow flesh and a wonderful sweet-tart balance. Fantasia produces large fruit with a rich, complex flavor that's hard to beat. One of the best things about nectarines is that they're self-fertile, which means you only need one tree to get fruit. You don't have to worry about planting a pollinator partner or depending on your neighbor's trees. That makes nectarines perfect for smaller yards where space is limited. Here's a winter care tip that makes a huge difference for nectarines. Spray your dormant tree with horticultural oil in late winter before the buds swell. This smothers overwintering insects and disease spores, giving you a much cleaner start to the growing season. It's a simple step that dramatically reduces pest and disease pressure later. Buying bare root nectarine trees this November gives you the cheapest option available and sets your tree up for strong root development through the cold months. The 14th fruit tree worth considering is the apricot, and it's one that rewards patient gardeners. Apricots grow in zones 5 through 7, though they can be tricky because they bloom very early in spring. That early bloom makes them vulnerable to late frosts, which can wipe out your entire crop some years. Goldcott is a reliable variety that produces consistently when conditions are right. Blenheim is prized for its exceptional flavor and is the gold standard for drying and canning. Tilton is another excellent choice with large, flavorful fruit and good disease resistance. The secret to success with apricots is choosing late-blooming varieties whenever possible. These bloom a week or two later than standard types, which often means they miss those devastating late-spring freezes. It's also crucial to plant apricots in well-drained soil. They absolutely cannot tolerate wet feet, and poor drainage will kill an apricot tree faster than almost anything else. Raised beds or planting on a slope can solve drainage issues if your soil is heavy. November is the perfect time to get apricots in the ground because they establish while dormant and are ready to bloom carefully in spring. When your apricot does produce, the fruit is absolutely incredible, fresh, dried, or preserved, with a flavor that store-bought fruit simply cannot match. The 15th and final tree on our list is citrus, and this one opens up possibilities even for northern gardeners. Citrus trees typically grow in zones 8 through 11, but the beauty of modern container growing means anyone can enjoy fresh citrus with a little planning. Meyer-Lehmann is the most popular choice for home growers because it's compact, productive, and the fruit has a sweeter, less acidic flavor than regular lemons. Valencia orange produces classic juice oranges and can fruit almost year-round in warm climates. Satsuma mandarins are among the most cold-hardy citrus available and can handle brief dips into the mid-20s. If you live in a cold climate, growing citrus in containers is absolutely the way to go. Plant your tree in a large pot with excellent drainage and move it indoors to a sunny window or sunroom before the first frost. The tree goes semi-dormant in winter and doesn't need as much light or water during those months. Using a slow-release citrus fertilizer gives your tree the specific nutrients it needs without the guesswork of mixing your own. November is perfect for planting citrus because the tree can settle in before winter, whether it's going in the ground in warm zones or in a container that you'll protect when cold weather arrives. And now for the bonus tip that gardeners swear by once they discover it. When you're planting any of these fruit trees this November, spend a few extra dollars on mycorrhizal inoculant and add it to the planting hole. These are beneficial fungi that form a partnership with your tree's roots, extending their reach by up to 50 times. That means your tree can access water and nutrients from a much larger area of soil without you doing anything extra. The fungi get sugars from the tree, and the tree gets dramatically improved nutrient uptake, better drought tolerance, and stronger overall growth. You can find mycorrhizal inoculant at most garden centers or online, and a small bag treats multiple trees. Just sprinkle it directly on the roots before backfilling the hole. Studies have shown that trees inoculated at planting establish faster, grow more vigorously, and start producing fruit sooner than trees planted without it. This is especially valuable for fruit trees because stronger root systems mean better crops and healthier trees for decades. It's one of those simple additions that costs very little but pays enormous dividends over the life of your tree. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire video. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more gardening tips, and check out our other videos on growing a better garden.